I'm here with Jen Stockberger at the Child Seat Test Center to discuss a very serious topic.
Yeah, Jack, today we're going to talk about child seats. And, you know, they've come a really long way from a time when I was a child and I didn't use anything to a period when they were more about just keeping the child staying put and really protecting them to the advanced safety features that they are today with all this energy-absorbing ability to really protect kids in a motor vehicle crash.
Engineers here have been testing car seats for decades to ensure babies and children are better protected.
In fact, Consumer Reports was a critical advocate of the dynamic safety tests that all child seats have to meet to be able to be sold in the United States.
How do parents choose the right child seat for their individual child?
Yeah, so each child has a progression of seats from the time they're born, you know, in an infant carrier probably, to as big as a booster seat. So they'll go through a series of seats, rear-facing, forward-facing, but you also as a parent need to be aware of how big your child is, height, weight, because all of those seats have height and weight limits that go along with them as well.
What are you looking for when it comes to testing child seats?
So we're really looking at three key aspects: how easy they are to use, how easy they are to install, and ultimately how much crash protection they provide. So Jack, I'm gonna show you some of our actual simulated crash footage from our test. Take a look.
That's hard to watch, Jen.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are simulated crash tests where everything's put in correctly, and they only simulate a 35-mile-an-hour crash, and they still look rather violent. But those stills from some of those images from those videos can help us demonstrate 5 key important things.
Here are Jen's tips to install a car seat correctly, whether they face forward or backward.
Getting that seat tight to the car is critical to allow the child seat to take advantage of all the energy-absorbing aspects of the car, all those crumple zones that you hear people talk about. So the rule is you don't want the seat to move more than 1 inch side to side or forward and back.
Once that seat's tight, next, get that harness tight.
Now we're talking about the child to the child seat as tight as possible. You don't want to be able to pinch any of that harness when you're checking at the shoulder.
You need that harness tight, but you also need it to be at the right height.
You want the harness height correct for forward-facing kids at or above the shoulders. You can see this was a tight harness. Look how much forward movement even this child has. And you want to keep it tight, but you don't want to put downward pressure on their shoulders and neck. For a rear-facing child, you want that harness to be at or below their shoulders. Even in our simulated crash where everything's tight, the tendency is for the child to want to ride up out of the shell. You want to keep them down in the seat, limiting the exposure of their head.
And Jen's 4th tip applies to forward-facing car seats.
The other thing to note on forward-facing seats is the top tether. This is the piece that kind of goes from the back of the child restraint over the seat back. It can go to the ceiling, it can go down in the cargo area. That top tether limits the forward motion of the seat itself and consequently the child. Make sure, whether you install it with latch or the vehicle seat belt, make sure that top tether is connected.
Finally, Jen's last tip applies to car seats that face backward.
And for rear-facing seats, recline angle is also important. Little babies have disproportionately heavy heads. If they're too far upright in their seats, their head can actually fall forward, obstructing their airway. So they need to be reclined sufficiently so they have clear breathing, but not so much that you make this situation worse where they're riding out of the seat. And these are tips that not just for parents, but for anybody who's riding in the back seat. A sibling, a babysitter, you can be the eyes and ears of your parents in that rear seat. All right, Jack, I know I threw a lot of information at you. Were you paying attention?
I was.
All right, good, because you and I, we're gonna install a child seat. Okay, Jack, so before you start, 2 things you absolutely want to read, and that's the owner's manual to the vehicle and the owner's manual to the child seat. This is what they call a rear-facing only or infancy. Separate base with a carrier, fits newborns well, offers the convenience of the carrier for carrying tiny babies. So what you're actually installing is the base. Give it a shot.
Okay, so from everything I've learned from you, try and lock these in tightly.
Right, and what you're using, those little bars that you're clicking to, is called the latch system.
latch system.
You can use latch or the vehicle seatbelt. You're using the latch system.
Put some weight into this.
Right,
so
there you go. That's your seat tight.
All right, and the recliner level
Right.
is good.
Your bubbles in between.
What do you think?
Nice job. Not
Nice.
only do I have less than an inch, I can barely move that base. You've really integrated it to
Good.
the vehicle. So you would put that carrier on, you'd have your baby in. Seat tight, recline right. Nice job.
This looks good. Jen, I've never installed a car seat before, so thank you.
Really, you did a really good job. The truth is, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 46% of child seats have some critical error in how they're installed or how they're used that could make that child less safe.
Very sobering and very informative. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.